The story begins in 2005 in Peoria, where Earl Stone is busy working in his flower garden. While he carefully tends to his flowers, a car suddenly pulls up near the property. Earl walks over to see who arrived and finds Jose waiting for him. The two immediately start ribbing each other. Later, Earl attends a flower convention. As soon as he arrives, Helen warmly welcomes him at the sign-in table. The moment Earl walks inside, people begin greeting him with genuine respect. Everyone there seems to know who he is. Earl has built a strong name for himself in the flower business, and people clearly admire his work. During the event, Earl notices a company promoting online flower sales. They explain how selling flowers through the internet is the future, but Earl barely pays attention. He quickly brushes the idea aside and refuses to take it seriously. Instead, he heads over to his own flower stand, where customers immediately start buying his flowers almost faster than he can put them out. Not long after, Earl receives a major honor for creating a special rose called the Illinois Majestic Rose. The achievement earns him the NDL 2005 Gold Medal in the horticulture community. As his name is announced, the crowd applauds loudly while Earl walks toward the stage. Rather than giving a long, boring speech, Earl keeps it short and cracks a joke about heading to a bar instead, making the audience laugh. At the same time, somewhere else, Earl's daughter Iris is preparing to get remarried. Her daughter Ginny still hopes Earl will show up to the ceremony, but Mary doesn't believe him anymore. Earl has spent years putting his work before his family, constantly letting them down when it mattered most. Mary openly doubts he'll even bother showing up. Hearing that clearly hurts Iris, and she walks away in tears. Meanwhile, Earl is at a bar enjoying himself. He happily orders another round of drinks for everyone there, including a nearby wedding party. For just a moment, he seems to remember his daughter's wedding, but instead of leaving, he brushes the thought aside like it means nothing and keeps on drinking. 12 years later, everything has changed. As it turns out, online businesses slowly pushed traditional flower growers out of the market, and Earl's flower business has completely fallen apart. He pays off the Mexican workers who worked for him, and they drive off. With nowhere else to turn, Earl shows up at his granddaughter Ginny's wedding rehearsal. The moment she sees him, she lights up and hugs him warmly, genuinely happy he came. A little later, they head out back, but the mood immediately shifts when his daughter and ex-wife arrive. Iris can barely stand seeing Earl there, and quickly heads back to wait in the car with her husband. Mary notices Earl's truck parked across the street, and instantly understands what's really going on. She tells him flat out that he didn't come for the wedding. He came because he has nowhere else to go. Mary finally lets years of built-up anger loose. She calls Earl out loudly in front of everyone, making an already uncomfortable situation even worse. Before leaving, she hands Ginny her wedding dress and walks away upset. Feeling ashamed and defeated, Earl quietly apologizes to his granddaughter before turning around and walking off himself. Seeing Earl upset after the argument, Ginny's fiancé's friend, Richard Rico, walks over to calm him down. During the conversation, Rico notices the various stickers all over Earl's truck. Earl proudly explains that he's driven through 41 states and has never gotten a single ticket or caused any trouble on the road. He talks about his years behind the wheel and clearly takes pride in his spotless driving record. After hearing that, Rico tells Earl he might have a job for him. He explains that he has friends who are looking for careful drivers to move cargo from one state to another. According to Rico, the work is simple and pays really well. He hands Earl a business card and points out that the money could help him support Ginny and pay for the wedding. Wanting to finally do something good for his granddaughter, Earl takes the offer. The next day, he drives all the way to a tire shop in El Paso, Texas, still not fully understanding what he's walking into. When Earl arrives, he pulls his truck into a garage where several armed Mexican gunmen are waiting for him. The men get ready to open a hidden compartment in the truck, but Earl quickly stops them. Instead, he confidently tells them to put whatever they're carrying in the trunk. It'll be safer there and won't raise any suspicion. The men are surprised, but end up doing exactly what he says. One of the three men laughs and calls Earl a fucking psycho. Earl laughs right along with them, like the whole situation is completely normal. Soon after, one of the men hands Earl a phone and lays out the rules. Answer calls day and night, but never use it to call anyone himself. Once he reaches the drop-off location, he'll get a text telling him where to leave the truck. He needs to hide the keys in the compartment and stay away from the vehicle for a full hour. Before Earl leaves, the men warn him not to look inside the bag in the trunk, and not even think about talking to the cops. They make it clear they already know everything about him. Somewhere else, Warren Lewis officially welcomes Agent Bates to his team, and briefs him on the growing crime connected to Mexican gangs in Chicago. After the meeting, Bates leaves Warren's office and meets Agent Trevino, who introduces himself as Bates number 1. Trevino leads him to his personal office, and the two get to work. Back on the road, Earl spends days and nights driving across the country until he finally reaches Illinois. Around the same time, Agents Bates and Trevino are sitting in their truck watching suspected Mexican gang members. They quietly take photos, trying to gather intel without being noticed. As they keep talking and watching the area, Bates finally spots one of their suspects and quickly starts snapping pictures. Meanwhile, Earl reaches his destination and carefully follows every instruction he was given. He parks the truck, hides the keys in the glove compartment, and walks away for a full hour. When he comes back to the vehicle, he notices something inside the glove compartment. Earl opens it and finds a massive amount of cash stuffed inside. As he quietly counts the money, another Mexican man suddenly knocks on Earl's truck window. The man calmly hands Earl a business card and tells him to call if he ever wants to work again. It's clear Earl handled the delivery exactly the way they wanted. He grabs the stack of bills and drives off. Later, Agents Bates and Trevino walk into a nail salon where they find a man named Luis busy talking on his phone during a manicure. The agents take his phone, identify themselves as DEA special agents, and immediately tell Luis they're there to save his life. They claim he's now working with the DEA, and Bates assures him they'll do everything possible to make sure the cartel doesn't find out.
I'm not working for the DEA.
At the same time, they reveal they also have warrants to search his house and walk out. Luis is confused and shaken, trying to make sense of what just happened. That same day, Earl actually shows up to Ginny's wedding and spends real time with his family for once. He enjoys the celebration, while Mary and Iris quietly watch him from a distance, unsure what to think. During the event, Ginny takes a moment to thank the important people in her life, her mom, her grandmother, and especially Earl, for covering the flowers in the open bar. A few minutes later, Earl approaches Mary, hoping to finally make things right between them. He gently asks her to dance, trying to reconnect after years of letting her down. But Mary turns him down. She tells Earl that nothing has really changed. He still cares more about his work than his own family. The next day, Earl swings by his old house before deciding to keep working for the cartel. Not long after, he buys a newer truck and heads back to the same tire shop for another job. When he arrives, the cartel members are surprised by the new pickup and load a suitcase full of drugs into the bed. Then they swap out his old phone and destroy it right in front of him. The rules stay exactly the same. Earl listens carefully, grabs the new phone, and hits the road again. During the trip, Earl stops at a small roadside store and picks up some blueberries. Outside, he spots a group of bikers struggling to fix their motorcycle. Earl walks over and casually tells them the problem is the relay. Turns out they're not guys at all. They're actually good-looking biker women.
Thanks, Pops.
Welcome, Dykes.
Earl finally arrives at his next drop-off and notices the guy waiting for him has fallen asleep in his car. Earl wakes him up, and the two get a good laugh out of it, like it's just another day on the job. At the same time, Agent Bates and Trevino walk into an interrogation room where Luis is waiting. Luis immediately claims he's not Mexican but Filipino and insists he has no reason to help the DEA. Bates calmly rattles off everything they found on him: drugs, unregistered weapons, and over $400,000 in cash. Bates then makes it very clear that Luis is looking at serious prison time. He looks him dead in the eye and points out that a guy with manicured nails and smooth skin isn't going to have an easy time in prison.
No, it's definitely bitch material.
The pressure finally gets to Luis, and he agrees to cooperate with investigators. Meanwhile, Earl goes to an agency to pay off his foreclosed house and settle all his debts. He pulls out a thick stack of cash and pays it on the spot. Soon after, he visits a Veterans of Foreign Wars hall that was badly damaged in a fire. Even though no one was hurt, the insurance company is refusing to properly cover the repairs. The bill comes out to $25,000. Earl is furious, seeing how badly the veterans are being treated, and decides to go back to doing runs. When Earl returns for another assignment, the cartel greets him like he's one of them now. This time, They hand him a much bigger bag than before. Out of curiosity, Earl finally asks what's in the bags. The question gets ignored. As usual, he gets a new phone and a reminder to follow every instruction to the letter. But this time, his curiosity gets the better of him. After loading up the truck, Earl quietly cuts open one of the bags and discovers it's completely packed with cocaine. Before he can properly seal the bag back up, a police officer walks over to check on him. Keeping his cool, Earl points to some grocery bags nearby and casually says they belong to his nephew. Right then, the officer's canine starts barking loudly. The cop releases the dog, and it starts reacting to the drugs in the truck. Earl quickly climbs back into the cab, rubs a strong-smelling ointment on his palm, then runs his hand across the dog's nose, just enough to throw it off and avoid suspicion. Somewhere else, Luis meets up with Bates and Trevino in their car. The agents tell him he needs to prove his value if he wants their protection. Luis starts laying out everything he knows about the cartel, the hotels they use across the city, how drug mules come in from different locations, pick up shipments, and get paid for deliveries. Back on the road, Earl successfully completes another delivery and receives an even bigger payout than before. He's genuinely stunned by the amount. Soon after, Earl donates money to repair the damaged Veterans Hall. Once the work is done, the community holds a grand reopening celebration, and Earl is publicly recognized for stepping up when nobody else would. Over time, Earl wraps up his 5th run, and the payouts keep getting bigger. By now he's a pro. He tosses the old phone himself without being told. Meanwhile, in Mexico, cartel boss Leighton tells his men that Earl is now moving over 100 kilograms of drugs worth $2.7 million. Seeing how well Earl has been performing, Leighton orders Julio to personally ride along on future runs. He believes the old man's deliveries could make all of them filthy rich. Julio clearly hates the assignment, but follows orders anyway. He later meets Earl at the usual tire shop and tells him the boss personally sent him. Julio explains that he'll be Earl's new handler and will be accompanying him going forward. Earl seems caught off guard and immediately asks about the guys he normally works with. Julio tries to come across as tough and in charge, but Earl barely takes him seriously.
Yes,
I'll show you my papers. Here are my papers.
Soon after, Earl pulls into the tire shop and reconnects with the workers he already knows. The relaxed vibe and joking around keep getting interrupted by Julio, who keeps trying to act like the boss. While everyone is distracted, Julio quietly plants a pen-sized listening device inside Earl's truck. A few minutes later, Earl's truck is fully loaded and he heads back out on the road. Julio and his partner follow behind. During the drive, they're stuck listening to Earl's music through the hidden mic, and slowly end up singing along themselves. Out on the highway, Earl suddenly spots a family stranded on the shoulder with a flat tire. Even though the cartel gave strict orders not to stop anywhere, Earl ignores them and pulls over to help anyway, while Julio and his partner watch from a distance, absolutely fuming. It quickly becomes obvious that the husband has no clue how to change a tire himself. Earl looks at him and jokingly asks if his dad never taught him how.
No, that's why I'm Googling it.
He then laughs and takes another jab at how today's generation turns to the internet for everything, instead of learning basic skills for themselves. That night, Earl checks into a hotel. From across the building, Julio watches from his own window as Earl casually flirts with 2 attractive women outside. Julio is annoyed, watching how relaxed Earl acts while handling cartel business. The next morning, Julio watches the same 2 women leave Earl's room, and Earl couldn't care less. They soon get back on the road, but road construction separates their vehicles in traffic. Earl ends up arriving at the final destination alone, without Julio anywhere in sight. As soon as Earl pulls up, a Mexican man approaches and demands to know who he is. Earl calmly tells him he's the driver. The man is still suspicious, but eventually waves him into the warehouse. Even once he's inside, the questioning continues as the workers try to confirm whether Earl was actually sent there. Earl eventually proves he was assigned to make the delivery to that exact location, but the men warn him this can never happen again. He's never supposed to show up alone without his handler. A few minutes later, Julio finally arrives and immediately gets all the blame. Earl quietly watches as the men argue loudly in Spanish. Things escalate fast until Julio suddenly pulls out a gun, forcing everyone to go quiet, and aggressively introduces himself to the workers. Once he's calmed things down, Julio orders the workers to unload the shipment while continuing to complain about Earl, calling him a constant pain in his ass.
And then go see a proctologist.
Still steaming, Julio calls the cartel boss directly to vent about Earl. During the call, he even threatens to kill him. But instead of getting angry, the cartel boss calmly asks what Earl actually did wrong. Julio explains that Earl never follows instructions properly. He stops wherever he feels like it and refuses to stick to the schedule. Surprisingly, the boss sees no problem with any of it. Since the deliveries keep coming through without a hitch, he lets Earl keep working his own way. After all, that might be exactly why Earl hasn't been caught yet. Meanwhile, the DEA investigation keeps gaining momentum. Luis continues feeding Bates and Trevino information about cartel routes, shipment codes, and transportation methods. But even with all the details they now have, the agents still can't pin down who the actual drug mule is. Everyone connected to the cartel only refers to the driver as Tata. Nobody knows his real name. A few days later, Earl heads out on his 9th delivery run, while Julio and his partner follow behind as usual. During the drive, both men grumble about Earl's driving, but they have no choice except to follow wherever he goes. At some point, Earl suddenly pulls off at a roadside open-air restaurant to grab a bite to eat. Julio and his partner reluctantly stop as well. Inside, people start staring at them. They look completely out of place compared to everyone else. After the break, Julio warns Earl there will be no more unnecessary stops. His patience is running out. But before Julio can even get back in the car, a police officer walks over and asks what exactly they're doing there. Earl immediately takes control of the situation and smoothly tells the officer those guys work for him. He jokes that he hired them from Home Depot because they're cheaper. To throw the officer off even more, Earl leads him over to the trunk and tells him he's got something to show him. He proudly pulls out some caramel popcorn that he supposedly got from a charity event. Earl even hands the officer 2 buckets, casually mentioning that he can't have any himself. Diabetes. The officer takes the buckets and walks away without pushing things any further. Back at the DEA office, Warren has just wrapped up a rough phone call. It's obvious his superiors are frustrated with how slow the investigation is moving. Moments later, Bates walks in and lays out everything they've gathered so far, including a possible plan to finally catch the cartel's drug mule on the next delivery. Days later, Earl heads out on another run, while Julio follows close behind. At one point, they both spot several police cruisers parked along the road. In a panic, both Earl and Julio quickly buckle their seatbelts. A moment later, they see the officers pull over another black truck nearby, and they both wonder if the cops are actually looking for them. Eventually, Earl makes it to the usual drop-off location with the shipment. This time, the workers congratulate him for breaking a record by successfully transporting 282 kilograms in a single run. Because of that achievement, Earl receives a personal invitation to Mexico to meet the cartel boss himself. After arriving in Mexico, Earl is escorted inside by cartel members before finally meeting the boss, Mr. Layton. The boss personally welcomes Earl and clearly treats him with respect for how valuable he's become to the organization. That night, the cartel throws a massive celebration in Earl's honor. Layton personally arranges a companion for him for the evening. Soon after, Earl ends up in a room with the woman, while the rest of the cartel keeps the party going outside. Before long, a second woman joins them. The night turns into a full-on celebration for Earl, while the cartel keeps drinking and having a blast. Later that same night, Earl sits down with Julio and unexpectedly gives him some straight-up life advice. He tells Julio he should get out of the cartel because these people don't actually care about him. But Julio refuses. He explains that he owes everything he has to Layton and can't just walk away from that life. These people are his family. The following day, DEA agents raid one of the cartel's suspected locations. But the operation only results in a few arrests and a small drug seizure. A real letdown compared to what they were hoping for. Meanwhile, Earl attends his granddaughter's graduation party. During the gathering, Mary slowly starts warming up to him again after years of tension between them. But at the same time, it's becoming clear that her health is getting worse. Not long after, the cartel is thrown into chaos. Layton is murdered by Gustavo, one of his own associates, who immediately takes over the organization. The moment he seizes control, Gustavo calls Julio and warns him that the mounting pressure from the DEA is becoming a serious problem for the cartel. Unlike Leighton, Gustavo has zero tolerance for flexibility or slip-ups. He makes it crystal clear that there will be no more cutting corners. Earl needs to follow every instruction exactly as given. Shortly after, Earl is walking out of a restaurant with a burger when Julio and several cartel members suddenly block his path. They tell him to come with them right now. Earl is forced to follow them deep into an isolated stretch of woods. Once there, the cartel members make their message impossible to miss. They warn Earl that disobeying orders will no longer be tolerated under Gustavo's leadership. To drive the point home, they show him the dead body of Julio's former partner, Sal. They make it clear that this is exactly what happens to anyone who becomes a problem for the organization. The warning visibly shakes Earl. Even after that, Earl is still sent out on another delivery. At the same time, the DEA keeps closing in on the cartel's operation. Through wiretaps, the agents finally get hold of the mule's route and destination. But when they try to intercept the truck, the operation falls apart because they can't identify the driver fast enough. They end up stopping the wrong black truck entirely. A little later, informant Luis tips off the DEA about a hotel. The location is immediately put under surveillance, while officers quietly monitor everyone going in and out. At the hotel, Earl notices a big, aggressive guy repeatedly punching an ice machine in frustration. Not wanting any trouble, Earl just walks away. But the DEA agents nearby also spot the man and realize he's carrying a gun. While the agents are getting ready to move in, Earl opens his hotel room door and accidentally bumps into Bates. Without realizing who Bates really is, Earl casually complains to him about the weird guy hammering the ice machine, phone in hand.
I don't know what it is with you guys in your generation.
You guys?
Trying to make his move, Bates heads toward the big man's hotel room and tries to get in. The man yanks the door open and comes at him aggressively, but within seconds, the agents overpower him and get the cuffs on. Despite all the tension, the whole operation turns into a disappointment. They only find a small amount of meth in the room. What the DEA never realizes is that Earl is staying in that exact same hotel. From behind the curtains in his room, he quietly watches the entire arrest go down without drawing any attention to himself. The following morning, Earl is sitting casually in a coffee shop when he unknowingly strikes up a conversation with Agent Bates. Neither man has any idea who the other really is. During the conversation, Earl opens up about life and family. He indirectly admits that he spent too many years chasing work while ignoring the people closest to him. Bates quietly listens as Earl talks about regret and time he can never get back. Not long after getting back on the road, Earl suddenly gets a call from Ginny, telling him Mary's condition has turned critical. Even though he's in the middle of an important delivery under Gustavo's iron grip, Earl immediately abandons the job and drives home to see Mary one last time. When he gets to her bedside, Earl apologizes for everything he put her through over the years. Meanwhile, his sudden disappearance sends the cartel into a panic. Beck and the others keep calling him over and over, but Earl ignores every single call. Later that night, Bates starts burning out from the investigation and begins questioning whether Luis is really giving them enough. Around the same time, Trevino intercepts a live cartel phone call. During the call, cartel members are furious as they admit they've lost contact with their mule. Their voices are full of rage. It's clear they're ready to kill whoever let them down. Back at Iris's house, Earl stays by Mary's side and takes care of her in her final days. At one point, Mary asks him where all this money suddenly came from. Earl jokes around at first, but then honestly admits he's been working as a drug mule. Mary laughs it off. She just can't picture someone like Earl actually getting mixed up in something that dangerous. Somewhere else, Luis tells Bates that the cartel has been out of contact with their mule for over a week, and he's out there carrying $12 million worth of drugs. According to Luis, cartel members are now spread out across the highways, searching for him everywhere. Back at the DEA office, Bates' supervisor is fed up with how long the investigation has dragged on, and is seriously considering shutting the whole thing down. Bates refuses to give up and pushes for one last shot at catching the mysterious courier once and for all. Meanwhile, Earl stays by Mary's side through her final hours. He finally apologizes for all the wasted years and honestly tells her how much he truly loved her. Not long after, Mary passes away. Her death completely breaks Earl, despite everything that happened between them over the years. After the funeral, Iris invites Earl to spend Thanksgiving with the family, giving him a real chance to reconnect with them in a way he never quite managed before. Earl promises he'll be there, but not long after, he quietly gets back on the road. The cartel quickly spots his truck moving down the highway and loses it. They track him down and demand answers for disappearing with the shipment. Earl calmly tells them he left because his wife was dying. Beck passes the explanation to Gustavo, but Gustavo shows absolutely no sympathy and coldly orders Earl to be killed. Without the cartel knowing it, the DEA intercepts the conversation and finally gets key details about Earl's vehicle. Even after getting roughed up by cartel members, Earl keeps driving, trying to finish the delivery. Armed with fresh information about the truck and aerial support tracking his every move from above, Bates and the DEA team finally catch up to Earl on the highway. When the agents stop the vehicle and pull Earl out, they're stunned. The cartel's legendary Drug Mule turns out to be nothing more than a frail old man, not the dangerous criminal they were expecting. After his arrest, Earl is brought to court. His lawyer argues that Earl was an elderly war veteran who was manipulated by dangerous criminals while struggling financially and trying to help his family. But before the lawyer can keep going, Earl cuts him off and pleads guilty to every single charge. As the officers escort him away, Earl leaves Iris and Ginny with one final lesson. He tells them that time is the one thing you can never get back once it's gone. Iris sadly replies that at least now the family will always know where he is. The story ends with Earl serving his sentence in a federal prison. Even there, he eventually finds some peace by returning to the one thing that always mattered most to him, quietly planting and tending to flowers in the prison garden.